Cunningham's response to all this, in terms of her tweets, like, if you guys didn't see Sophie Cunningham's retweets, Sophie Cunningham obviously responded with the shrug Instagram post, but has responded to the petition by just retweeting a freaking post about her jersey being sold out. That is a response. That is quote tweeting the petition. Like, that is the best way of going about it.
A petition was launched to ban Sophie Cunningham, casting her as though she were a villain from a blockbuster film. Her response, however, was far from an apology. Instead, she delivered a confident showcase of her highlights, amplified with unapologetic flair. For those expecting remorse, Sophie offered none. She came prepared with facts, composure, and a closing statement that resonated across the WNBA. This wasn't crisis management, it was a powerful display of self-assurance and resilience.
I need to talk about this right here. So yesterday's game was obviously funny. Yesterday's game was obviously crazy. But have you guys not seen the petition? The petition, lads. So if you guys didn't see, obviously, there is the Dallas Wings fan page. Take the All-Star game out of Indiana. I'm serious. This is about player safety. Dude, don't worry. Neither JC or Marina is making the All-Star team. Players will be safe. The only player on the Dallas Wings that's going to make the All-Star team is Paige.
Sophie Cunningham saw the petition, laughed mid-workout, and retweeted it as if it were a piece of fan mail. Unfazed doesn't even begin to describe her. She's thriving on the controversy like it's part of her pre-game routine. While critics tried to cast her as the villain in an over-dramatized basketball narrative, she leaned in with a poised, almost playful defiance that said, "You called? This isn't a redemption story. It's a bold response, equal parts flair and fire, delivered with the finesse of a glitter-laced crossover."
All-Star break in Indiana, and I'm like, man, Dejanay Carrington needs to work her way back into the starting lineup for the worst team in the WNBA before she even thinks about being an All-Star this year. But yeah, it is hilarious. It is absolutely.
And that tweet? Sophie didn't just retweet it, she anointed it, like a royal decree from the reigning queen of calculated comebacks. It was the digital equivalent of cracking her knuckles and declaring, "Let's dance." If anyone expected her to buckle under public pressure, they clearly haven't been paying attention. Sophie Cunningham doesn't fold. She responds with precision, intensity, and just the right amount of perfectly timed side-eye.
Now everybody knows who Sophie Cunningham is. Everybody wants a piece of Sophie Cunningham. Her jersey is the #1 selling jersey in the WNBA. Sold out. Now, why is that significant? I'll tell you. Because her jersey surpassed the all-time woman, Caitlin Clark. The most popular woman ever in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, got her jersey surpassed by Sophie Cunningham. Why? Because Sophie Cunningham stood up for Caitlin.
The petition itself read like a masterclass in performative outrage, fans clamoring for bans as if this were some dystopian spin on American Idol, where confidence alone gets you voted off. But let's be clear, Sophie Cunningham isn't reckless, she's responsive. There's a distinct line between chaos and consequence, and people often blur it. When she gets physical, it's typically because someone else crossed that line first. She's not starting fights, she's finishing them, with precision, conviction, and just the right amount of extra heat.
So I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm just saying. Sophie Cunningham stood on business. So all these damn petitions and all these little stupid things they're trying to do, these little freaking fines, we don't care about none of that. Now, just like Rachel said, your boy John Liquidator, I'm not condoning any violence whatsoever. But what I can tell you is that Sophie Cunningham stood on business and did the human thing to do.
Because when you come for her teammates, Sophie Cunningham goes full medieval. Even the slightest misstep toward her squad, and she's charging in like a human freight train fueled by loyalty and fire. For Sophie, it's not about fouls, it's about family. The league can debate the rulebook all it wants, but when someone targets her teammates, she's not waiting for the whistle, she's delivering the message loud and clear, and somewhere along the way, Sophie Cunningham became the WNBA's most unlikely fan favorite. Not for the feverish faction obsessed with turning Caitlin Clark into a one-woman revolution, but for everyone else. Sophie is the anti-hero we didn't know we needed. She brings the intensity of a linebacker, the social media savvy of a meme maestro, and the raw emotional depth of a woman who's had enough. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a modern sports saga where Cinderella wears sneakers, sets screens, and checks hypocrisy in real time. They tried to silence her, but instead, she became a headline machine with a highlight reel laced in retribution. Her response wasn't born of bitterness. It was a breaking point. For months, she stood by watching as her teammate Caitlin Clark was picked apart, every move scrutinized, every foul transformed into conspiracy. Sophie didn't snap, she stood up.
Everybody knows who Sophie Cunningham is. Everybody wants a piece of Sophie Cunningham. Her jersey is the #1 selling jersey in the WNBA. Sold out. Now, why is that significant? I'll tell you. Because her jersey surpassed the all-time woman, Caitlin Clark. The most popular woman ever in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, got her jersey surpassed by Sophie Cunningham. Why? Because Sophie Cunningham stood up for Caitlin Clark.
The double standards were practically dripping from the arena lights. When Fever players get physical, it's called passion. Just good basketball. But when Sophie Cunningham so much as raises an eyebrow or clears space with her shoulder, it's suddenly a crisis, an outrage, petition-worthy behavior. Someone explained how Grace Sheldon lowering her shoulder into Sophie was framed as competitive spirit, but Sophie's response was treated like a war crime on the timeline. Is it selective vision, or just bad acting? Because let's talk about Sheldon for a second. That wasn't light contact. She came in with the force of someone trying to bulldoze a brick wall with her torso. That shoulder wasn't lowered, it was weaponized. And Sophie? She took the hit, blinked once, and responded the way any self-respecting enforcer would, with an emotional sledgehammer. If you're going to test her balance, don't cry foul when she resets the scale.